Hello everyone, hope you're having a fantastic Monday so far and welcome to the Waiver Wire show, your weekly information on one undrafted Pokemon and their potential usage in the draft league formats. I'm of course your host Strompfel and let's just get right into the news. No, I cannot have that in the video, I have to edit that shit out. So, for this first week I decided on which Pokemon to be covered, but if you want to be a part of the decision on which Pokemon to be covered next week, go to the GBA official Twitter and help me decide. Links to that will be in the description below. But with that all being said, let's meet this week's contestant. So, weighing in at 1,957 pounds, we have the four-armed whale, well I guess Guzzlord. So, taking a look at Guzzlord's stats, we see that this enormous submarine looking like has an incredible base 223 HP. It has a decent attack stat at 101 and a special attack at 97, defenses around 53 and a horrible speed stat at 43. So it has a decent offensive pressure, and while its defenses isn't too much to celebrate about, they're easily backed up by that enormous base 223 HP. Now, the speed is where Guzzlord falls, since I can strongly say that my grandmother will outrun it. But with some investments in bulk, you will probably be able to take an attack and strike back. Guzzlord is a Dark and Dragon type, which is a dual type that isn't really amazing, but it's nothing to take lightly either. Dark and Dragon gives Guzzlord a glaring 4x weakness to Fairy, which is a common type in the Draft League format. Although, the good thing about this is there is no hidden power Fairy, which means that not every single Pokemon can pack 4x super effective coverage against Guzzlord. And from a more offensive perspective, Dark and Dragon are pretty good offensive typings, as again, Fairy is the only one covering both. So before we hop right into Pokemon Showdown for some sample sets, I just want to give you my thoughts on why this crab, why it's not drafted. The most common thing of course is that Fairy types just shuts it down completely, and since Fairy types is such a priority for most coaches, it's not that tempting to pick up such a liability. Also, there are a lot of better Dragon types out there with, for example, better coverage or more suitable stats to the team. And while Guzzlord has great bulk and all that, it doesn't really have the most reliable way to get back HP, the main way being rest. And of course, last but certainly not least, it's slow as balls. But that was just some facts on why it wasn't drafted, and here's some facts on why it maybe should consider to pick it up. Sure, Fairy types are pain to deal with, but this isn't the only one brought to the battle. There are ways to get around Fairy types, and once they're gone, your opponent might have some difficulties finding switch-ins to Guzzlord. This is of course because Guzzlord has one of the wider move pools compared to many of the other Ultra Beasts. This means the Guzzlord could be a decent wall breaker, and it has the amount of coverage, including steel and poison on both sides, to be a little bit more unpredictable. But now I think it's time to take a look at some sample sets with Guzzlord, so let's just jump into Pokemon Showdown. So before we go into detail with the Guzzlord set that you're seeing on the screen right now, I just want to explain the concept. Every Pokemon will have 4 sets showcased, 3 sample sets which are a little bit more standard-ish way to run the Pokemon, and then a little bit more creative set. This will be called the weekly Bill set, shoutouts to Bill Standish, and it will showcase another route you can take with Guzzlord or any other Pokemon in team building. Now, you might think some Bill sets are bad, but you have to remember that everything could be viable in a draft system, and these sets are only there to showcase just the limit of creativity you can do with the Pokemon. Okay, but the first sample set that we have here is a choiced set. The item choice for this set is either a choice band or a choice specs. You don't really want to go choice scarf with Guzzlord. The move slots for the choice set are pretty much depending on which item you want, and we'll take a look at the choice band first set, and then we'll later move on to the choice specs. And the moves are Dragon Claw, Crunch, Earthquake and Heavy Slam. Dragon Claw and Crunch of course for stab, Earthquake for steel types, and Heavy Slam for fairy types. Of course, you can also substitute one of these out for example, Poison Jab, or if you want to go real creative and throw on a hidden power on a choice banned set, although I wouldn't recommend that. So the EVs that I put in is just max HP and max attack with the adamant nature and 4 in special defense, since the main mindset behind this set is just to take an attack and dish out an unexpected amount of damage back. Now, if I were you and I were supposed to use this set, I would probably optimize it a bit, depending on what opponent I need to prepare for, since just max might be a little bit too simple. Maybe substitute a little bit out in attack and put it in defense to maybe survive a clutch hit. And of course the same goes for the choice spec set. You just substitute out the attacks for special attacks. So you have Draco Meteor and Dark Pulse for your stab options, Sludge Wave for fairies, and Fire Blast for steel types. EV spread are pretty much the same, max in HP, max in special attack, with a modest nature this time since you want to hit from the special side. And I forgot to mention it on the choice band set, but Guzzlord has the ability Beast Boost, which gives it a boost in the highest stat that you have if you can rack up a kill. So the next set is a mixed set with either a life orb or an assault vest for the item slot. This depends on if you want to be a more aggressive person with a life orb to make sure your damage output is better, or if you want to make sure to survive extra hits, you can always go with the assault vest. You do have a bunch of options. If you want to be more physical orientated, maybe you should substitute Draco Meteor for Dragon Claw or something else. This is just to show one route you can go with the Pokemon. Now, funnily enough, I realize now that this set doesn't even have a physical attack, but you can just get into the mindset that you can play around with this Guzzlord set and basically just, yeah, do what you want, go more physical or go more special and still have other options. EV spread is pretty simple, just max in HP, and again, just play around with the EVs as much as you want. Maybe you want to have a lot of special attack, but also want to have the beast boost in attack, then maybe just put a little bit more in attack. The good thing about Guzzlord is that you don't even have to worry about the speed stats, since you will be slower either way. So that could be something positive, right? No? Okay, either way, moving on. Now the next set is a more defensive approach with Guzzlord, and the item choice is leftovers since you do want to keep your big demon fish healthy. And what you want to do with this set is just sit around and wait. The moves for this Guzzlord set is Rest, Sleep Talk, Dragon Tail, and Toxic. Rest is of course for recovery, Sleep Talk is to be able to strike even when you're sleeping, Dragon Tail is actually to face around your opponent, and the last could be either Crunch or Toxic. Toxic of course just to be able to sit there and stall your opponent, or Crunch to be a little bit more offensive. And the main objective with this Pokemon is just to sit around and shuffle your opponent. I would probably pair this type of Guzzlord with Hazard Stack as the strategy, since Guzzlord's main objective is just to shuffle around the opponent, so might as well just let them take extra damage with hazards. EV spread is pretty simple, as always. You just have 4 in HP and max in both defenses. And this one has a careful nature. Be my guest, use a defense racing nature if you want. I don't really want to control what you're doing with your demon fish, but of course just do the things that's best suited for your opponent. And since I count the choice set, even though they're technically 2 different Guzzlords, but it's basically one set, we have this week's build set. And this week's build set is quite creative. So this set is supposed to function as a fairy check, and now you might be thinking, okay, he's gone completely insane. He wants to use a dark and dragon type as a fairy check. And yes, you might be right, I might be completely insane, but I just want to showcase the set and how it's supposed to function. Remember, I have not tried this out, and if you're underage, don't try this at home. So the item choice is a Roselli Berry, and what that does, it reduces the damage output from one fairy type attack with half. And the moves is Belch, Draco Meteor, Dark Pulse, and Substitute. And why did I choose Belch? Actually, Belch makes a great difference in damage calculation. Belch, if you don't know, which you probably don't, is a poison type attack with 120 base power. And you might be thinking, that's really good. But wait, there is a little bit of a twist. Belch only works if you have eaten a berry. I probably should have put a disclaimer that I created this Guzzlord in case I were to face off against a Tapu Koko. And why I chose Tapu Koko is just because it's a really common fairy type. And actually none of Guzzlord's poison or steel type attack except Belch picks up to 1-hit KO on Tapu Koko. And you might be thinking why I have substitute on this set, since I probably won't be able to set up a substitute after I've taken a fairy type hit. This is because Roselli Berry will activate even if you're behind a substitute, so if you can predict they're switching into a fairy type, you can set up a substitute and Roselli Berry will activate, and then you can belch them right back and pick up the 1-hit KO. The EV spread is just max HP 180 in special attack and 76 in special defense with a modest nature. I put this in just because 180 with modest is the amount of special attack you need to pick up the 1-hit KO against standard Tapu Koko, and the rest was just put in to get maximum bulk. This is of course a set you should not bring every single week, but if you bring it once or twice, maybe you can pick up a surprise KO and support the team around you. And that brings us to the end of the first video of the Waiver Wire show in this season of the GBA. And for the next week, I really want you guys to help me decide a Pokemon to be covered. And you can help me decide via a Strawpoll that is linked in the description below. The options on the Strawpoll are Dragalge, Vikavolt, Gardevoir, Tentacruel, Araquanid, Amoonguss, Lantern and Flygon. It's a really interesting roster and I'm really looking forward to see you guys' opinion on which of these Pokemon is the most interesting to be covered on this show. But with that all being said, I think it's time for me to wrap up this edition of the Waiver Wire show. I hope you'll have a continuously good day and try not to kill anyone. I've been your host Strompfel and I'll see you all next week. Goodbye.